With the announcement of the level 20 Hardcore Duel to the Death challenge, I thought it would be a great chance to go over each class's potential to win the tournament. Most Twink guides are for level 19, due to Battleground level caps being level 19, 29, 39, and so on. Because of this, level 19 builds are not taking level 20 abilities into account. New builds and strats will be available for pretty much all classes, as they get access to the third tier of talents and radical abilities like Cat Form for Druid, Amplify Curse and Fell Domination for Warlock, and Aim Shot for Hunters, just to name a few. Also, most Twink builds are built for Battlegrounds. A duel is just a 1 versus 1, with no objective besides kill the opponent before they kill you. So, I'll be doing a quick tier list to kind of showcase which classes I think will shine and which will struggle. For each class, I'll discuss their key abilities and strats, talent builds, and matchups versus other classes. Alright, let's get into it. Druid is the jack of all trades, master of none. Its toolkit is very diverse, having the ability to heal, stealth, tank, deal damage with melee or range, and has root and stun. If a Druid wants any chance of winning this tournament, they're going to have to utilize everything. Cat Form is actually kind of weak at level 20, as you only have Prowl, Claw, and Rip. Having a stealth opener as well, obviously very nice, and Rip can deal good damage to high armor opponents like warriors and paladins. Outside of getting a bleed up though, the Druid would be better served going entangling roots into Starfires, which will hit very hard, or sitting in bear form and slowly whittling down the enemy with Mauls and Demo Roars. For talent builds, there are a few options. If you've ever been in the Druid Hardcore class channel, you have likely seen the arguments over Omen of Clarity or rushing straight Feral Tree. Both have their places here, as the early Feral combat talents offer more utility and defensive options, while the Balanced Tree's natural weapons and Omen of Clarity offers more offensive firepower. Restoration also offers some niche talents in Fur and Improved Enrage, but falls short of the others due to how limited power shifting is. You can also opt for natural shapeshifter against mages, as you'll be slow to root it a lot, but again, this is at best very matchup reliant due to your small mana pool. For traditional Boomkin lovers, Wrath falls short here, as it's only rank 3 and lacks the spell power to match other spellcasters. Plus, you'll be relying heavily on getting roots up to get distance and time to cast against melee targets. Overall, Druid matches up well against most of the non-top tier choices, but struggles against classes in the top tier like Hunter and Paladin, which are both strong S tier choices. I'd say Druid falls somewhere in the middle of the pack. It's going to probably get outclassed at some point in the bracket, but can definitely win a couple matches. Hunters are easily an S tier class. With a pet, ridiculous range, and also damage, it's a 1v1 god. While it has a bunch of moves that don't really help it a ton, its raw damage output from the pet and auto shots is scary, and access to great CC and concussive shot, freezing trap, wing clip, and scare beast to make it a great competitor. It also gets access to Aspect of the Cheetah, which is a high risk, high reward talent in the duel. It can augment its kiting ability to ridiculous unmatchable levels, but also places it at risk of getting caught if dazed. For talents, Hunters can get a 20% chance to proc a stun on concussive shot, choose between 5% crit on weapons, or 15% attack power bonus on Hunter's Mark, and then get Aim Shot, which will shred any target that gets hit by it, particularly clothies and leather wearers. If a Hunter can get off a freezing trap into this, it will likely be GG for anyone. You can also build for deterrence if you're matched up against a melee, as it gives you a huge defensive option if someone gets on you, giving you a chance to wing clip and run away. Hunter doesn't really struggle with many classes at level 20. Paladin and Mage would likely be the hardest, as they have good chances of closing the gap into your dead zone and then kind of, playing in there and preventing you from being able to play your game. If a lock manages to get dots up on you and then a fear, you will likely die, making that a hard matchup that will require perfect kiting. Overall though, Hunter definitely falls into S tier. This might seem like a controversial take, but Paladin is my favorite to win the tournament. They get a ridiculous amount of utility in Bop, Freedom, Bubble, and Lay on Hands. Coupled with high armor, heals, and high HP, this class will be a pain in the ass to kill and outlast. With so much to get through in a fight, most classes are going to struggle to have the throughput to beat a Paladin in a 1v1. Talent build wise, Seal of Command builds offers nice bulk as well as 5% parry chance for rogues, paladins, and warriors. 20% bonus to Blessing of Might is also great damage over long. Also go for tankier builds and improved Bop and improved Devo Aura for fights against melee. You also can get some hit, which is huge as you only swing so often, and misses can make you not deal damage for long periods of time. The third tiered talents are meh, as Blessing of Kings isn't that much better than Might. Holy has some options of going for concentration, but it's mana inefficient for one target. It might be good for getting rogues out of stealth, but they aren't that really much of a threat at level 20 anyway. The strength and int talents aren't super beneficial either, as the raw stat increases will be low at this level. Paladins don't really have a bad matchup. They have Blessing of Freedom to get in on all mages and hunters, can beat up warriors and rogues while tanking their hits. Priests and locks will have maybe decent chances or the best chance of beating them. A priest can try to outlast them by playing conservative with a wand. It'll definitely be the closest matchup as they can consistently do damage without using their mana. The paladins will slowly have to use their mana over time and their cooldowns, while the priest really can keep going and keep going and keep going, while also having cooldowns in likely Desperate Prayer and Stone Form for dwarfs, and just general healing options on other ones. But all in all, like I said, I'm putting Paladin as my favorite to win it all. Mage is often thought of as a top-end PvP spec in WoW Classic. However, at level 19, which is where most twinks are, and to a lesser extent level 20, it's not nearly the same formidable monster. You don't have access to Pomp Pyro obviously, but also traditional Frost builds that are so good. They're so good because of how well their talents synergize together. You get better slows and roots, you get extra crit chance and damage against frozen targets, you get a cooldown reset ability for several moves that increases your survivability and damage output. Everything just meshes together so well. You just don't have enough talent points to get everything at level 20. What you do have, however, is still very good. You gain Evocate and Blink at level 20, which helps you a ton. You also still have Polymorph, one of the best CCs out there for resetting and survivability purposes. The Mage also has 2 talent builds that might be worth building for. The first actually being Pyroblast. This spec is going to rely on getting Polymorph out onto a target and then blasting them with the Pyroblast. It should shred them down, and technically you can Frost Nova them in place and go for a second, provided it doesn't break early. However, you aren't able to get Elemental Precision with this build, so you will lose out on guaranteeing hits, and I promise you, losing a duel tournament because you get 1 or 2 resist on a Poly, a Frost Nova, or a big hit, it's not going to feel good. The second build is more of a traditional Frost build. Depending on the matchup, you will grab different talents on the second tier. All of them are really good. Cold Snap will be good against melee to reset Frost Nova, but that's the only Frost ability it's going to reset at this level. So against spellcasters, it won't be as good. Mage should still do well against Warrior and Rogue, but will struggle against classes like Druid and Pally that can outlast them and won't just die in one hit to something. Against Hunters, it's interesting, as the Hunter absolutely shreds you, but you can get in the dead zone and Frost Nova them in place, and then slow and try to stay in their zone. You could use Blink to get in as well. The problem is, when zoning them, you can't really get much damage off, as you're constantly trying to adjust to their position, and their pet will slowly whittle you down. So if you can get off an early Poly off on the Hunter, and then a Pyroblast into a Nova into another Pyroblast, that's probably been your best bet to kill them. Overall, I'd say Mage is pretty good, but it definitely has some tough matchups with some of the other really good classes, so I think overall it's going to be right around with the Druid. You can argue that it's a little bit above, a little bit below, it doesn't really matter. It's basically in that class where it's going to have a bunch of really good matchups against some of the weaker classes, but it's going to struggle against some of those top tier ones. Priest is an underrated twink class, or well, a non-glamorous option. It's surprisingly bulky due to shield, inner fire, renew, and its heals. You also get a fear and unique race abilities to utilize as well. Your best bet for fighting is to get Shadow Word Paint on the enemy and make use of a wand. Level 19 twinks utilize this wand from Black Fathom depths as then get to high levels to carry them through. Technically, you can get a bunch of people who hopefully will be higher than level 20 to kind of carry you through, but that might just be a streamer privilege kind of thing. I know myself personally, I will be playing Priest for this reason. I do kind of want to play Lock, so it'll be unfortunate that I can't get this really good wand and will probably hurt me in the later rounds, but so be it. Oh well. Talents are kind of weird for Priest, as the third tier doesn't offer anything game-changing, so mixed builds are more viable for Priest than other classes. Wand damage talent is a must in Discipline, and then either Unbreakable Will, Power Word Shield, Martyrdom, or Improved Fort are all good. Inner Focus isn't bad, and you can try to go for the big Holy Fire out of a fear, but it'll be situational. Also, for the Unbreakable Will, there's not a ton of CC at that level, however with the Fear, and again the Silence, I'm not sure if that counts for interrupted stuff. I don't think it does, so it's not going to be as big of a deal. You might be better off going for other spells. Or sorry, other talents. If you do want to go for something like Healing Focus and Divine Fury and Holy, those are other options that augment your healing capability, but you're stuck with Improved Renew or Holy Specialization to get to that Divine Fury talent. Blackout is nice but unreliable to fish for. Shadowy Focus would only be used for Shadow Word Pain and Mind Blast, but extra time on Shadow Word Pain is pretty good. And Spirit Tap is, well, obviously useless. Priest is going to do really well against Warrior and Rogue. Against the Warrior, they've got to get through Bubble first before he gets any rage, and at that point the Warriors are going to be pretty hurt, and it has no way of stopping a Fear. Against a Rogue, unless it gets a really lucky, crit with an ambush into a crit with the backstab, the Priest is just going to be able to Fear it away, even if it's an Undead Rogue. I think it gets Shackle Undead at that point, so if you will the Forsaken, it's going to be able to shackle you. And just in general, it's most likely not going to die. If it's a Druid, if it's a Dwarf, it's going to have Stone Form and Desperate Prayer for immediate healing, and it'll most likely be able to survive you out, and by the time it gets to that second fear, you're done. It will struggle against Shaman, as it will have its buffs purged away, and Warlock can give you some issues as you can't dispel any of its damage that will ramp up with time or fear. Against some of the top tier classes like Hunter, it's going to be kind of a tough matchup. You're going to try to instantly dispel yourself, but you can't because you don't have that yet. So if Gnomes could be it, we'd be good here to get again against the Hunter, but you can't. I think the Hunter might be kind of harder. Paladin's going to be kind of like a 50-50, maybe slightly favoring the Paladin just due to their survivability options. I think overall, if you can kind of avoid those till later, you might be able to win 1 or 2 matches against them. So I do think it kind of fits up here in that second tier. Mage might be kind of tough too due to their burst damage and the fact that it can keep resetting against you. But if you can't get a fear off on them, like it's a little risky, it's going to be good for you there. So I think that's where Priest can go. I think just their general bulk and survivability and sustain, it's going to make it really tough for anybody to beat. Up next we got Rogue. While Rogue is synonymous with pain when it comes to PvP, it doesn't have its toolkit developed enough at level 20 to make it work. It can't endlessly CC you, as there's no cheap shot or blind, and you don't have Vanish or Prep. Sap is also unreliable CC, and your damage just isn't really there to make up for it. You can either build for improved sprint, by going combat, or riposte for fighting melee targets. Endurance is not going to make a 5-minute cooldown short enough to justify taking in a duel. T offers better stealth targets, and a build for ambush and backstabs with opportunity, and then 1 point in improved ambush. You could also get ghostly strikes for fighting against melee. Rogue is going to suffer against classes like Mage unless it somehow one-shots with ambush. It will get frozen, and even if you improve sprint out with some luck, you'll get polyed or refrozen with a cold snap Frost Nova. Then you'd never get near the Mage ever again. I don't know if rogues are going to get auto openers in the tournament. If they do, don't bother with Mastery or Deception, obviously, and go for Camouflage for a better chance to re-stealth out of a gouge. If you aren't given a free opener, you might need some stealth levels, as without an ambush, you're likely not beating anything. Against heavier targets like a Pally or Druid, you likely can't kill them fast enough in your burst window, and then you're going to get CC or stalled out. If you can get an interrupt on a locked sphere, you might be able to get them down before they get dots on you, but they'll likely have double sack waiting. Hunters are likely to beat you too, as you have no way out of their freezing trap and you can't disarm it yet, and then you get CC'd forever and stalled out. Does Rogue really beat anything? Well, maybe Elemental Shamans, as even Warriors can't really be kited forever due to 30% slow from crippling rank 1. And to be honest, I'm not sure how well Ambush might just honestly straight up be able to kill some classes, and you can live long enough and get a couple range attacks off on people with your bow or throwing weapon. So I think it can definitely steal a match or two. It's not going to win the bracket, I can guarantee you that. It just doesn't have the damage against the bulkier classes. It's just not going to be there for that. But I think it can definitely get a kill against some of the weaker classes, maybe even a Priest if they end up, being able to sap stall off the buff-powered shield. Who knows? So we'll see. Okay, up next we got Shaman, and it's admittedly a class I don't know too much about, and it did win the level 40 original Classic WoW PTR tourney, beating a ton of spellcasters. But at level 20, it doesn't really get Wind Fury, and its Ellie spec goes so fast. For Ellie, you can build to Elemental Focus, grabbing some damage and mana cost talents along the way. While you can spec Enhance, it's just not worth it without Wind Fury to gimmick you some kills. It also lacks talents that really make it stand out. Ellie does do good damage, but with no Chain Lightning, it lacks anything that really make it stand out. Tremor Totem is good, but a good Locker Priest will just kill it before they fear, making it not really worth the mana to keep putting down. Shaman can also do really well against Mage with Earthshock, but no grounding prevents it from really having that shutdown capability. Basically, both Enhance and Ellie are missing critical spells to let it shine against anything. Even a Warrior will have good chance against it at this level, making it, in my opinion, the worst class. It can do okay against a Priest due to Purge, but honestly it might get outlasted still due to Wands. It might not have the burst capabilities to nuke it down quickly enough. I'm ready to be proven wrong. People were not expecting Shaman to win at level 40, but this is one of my bold predictions for this video, is that Shamans will not do well at level 20. Okay, second to last we got Warlock. They gained some nice abilities at level 20 in Demon Armor, new Immolate rank, and Shadow Bolt, and then good talent options. While it does have access to Succubus, it lacks Seduce at this level, making Voidwalker's sack pretty much the only choice you can make. Especially in combination with Fell Domination, this first spec's priority. This spec focuses on survivability, gives you better health stones and stamina, buffs your Voidwalker's damage and sacrifice value, and it gives you access to a second sacrifice with a shorter cast time, albeit still 4.5 seconds. While this build is bulkier, it misses out on some value, due to the Hellstone being a level 10 version. Voidwalker doesn't really gain a ton of damage from this, and Fell Domination still makes Voidwalker a 4.5 second cast that takes a ton of mana. There is another build that I think will also be good, and that's this Affliction build. Amplify Curse makes your next Curse of Agony deal 50% extra damage, and you just got a new rank of Curse in Agony at level 18, which is very recent. You get some extra mana from life taps, which helps efficiency, and of course instant corruptions. You can quickly get dots on the target that will likely just straight up kill them after the full duration if they don't have heals. You can then Fear, drain life, and then go for a Shadow Bolt at range. This spec will melt all but the bulkiest of targets. I'd put Warlock at the top of A tier, maybe bottom of S tier. I think it's going to be a solid choice for this tournament. It probably isn't able to kill a Paladin outright, especially with all the immunities that they get, and you're going to run out of steam versus that. And against a Hunter, you might get kited out for a while, and unless you get dots up really early, you're just not going to have enough survivability to live through it forever. So it kind of loses some of those top tier choices. But if you get a couple early matches in the bracket against some of these other things, they get kind of pushed later, and then hope some of the Paladins and Hunters in your path lose, you have a shot. You definitely have a shot. And last up, we got Warrior. Warrior gets memed on as a shitty class to level and for solo PvP at max level. And to be honest, it's more of the same here. It gets slowed out by Mage and Druid, Priest and Lock can fear it at will due to no enrage, and some classes can prevent a charge with an instant cast spell to force combat. Warriors rely just too heavily on others and gear, which you won't be able to get enough of in solo tournament play. You do get Retaliation, which is a huge cooldown, but a lot of classes can just CC you out for that duration. Its talents aren't that great either, as its arm build gets it parry chance, charge rage, and either bleed damage or thunderclap rage cost. 25% chance to crit overpower is nice versus melee, but underwhelming considering the rest of what you get. Tactical Mastery is only good if you go for a disarm, as it's the only ability in defensive stance at level 20 that can't be used in battle stance. If you go Fury, you get 5% chance to crit, which is nice, and then get some defensive value and improved Demoralizing Shout, and can then grab Piercing Howl to limit kiting. However, realistically, what's a warrior going to do a lot of these things? I do think it does well against Shaman and Rogue, so it's at least going to beat out those two classes, but pretty much everything else above it's going to be able to beat it pretty easily due to the reasons listed earlier. So really, I don't think it can go much higher than this. So that's what I got for this tier list. Again, I'm ready to be proven wrong. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What class are you guys applying for? I want to see what my competition's going to look like. Let's hope we all get into the tournament. Maybe they open the bracket up to more than 64 people, because I think realistically, not many people are going to get into that, and there's also going to be a lot of streamers that kind of take up a lot of those slots. And I get it. They want to have people who are going to advertise this a bit more to fill a lot of those slots, but there's plenty of good PvPers who aren't streamers. If anything, I'd argue some of the best ones aren't streamers, so we'll see. Let's see how it goes. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and like the video. It really helps me a lot with this channel. We're going really fast right now. Looking forward to hitting that first sub goal of 250 people. Honestly, as I'm recording this, I'm at 235 right now. We might very well hit that before we actually get this video out. So hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care.